that is actually recording. Yay! Okay, I got it to work. How'd your slideshows go? Slideshows go. Can't speak. I swear.
Drink more coffee.
I know, that's the bad thing. I only have tea. Coffee will come later. Any major issues with your slideshow aside from your music not loading until it was a low res version?
I think it's just Lightroom sucks at my house right now, so
Hmm.
I'll fix it.
We gotta figure out why that's doing that, because that really does suck. Well, luckily for us, we really have, it's like the last main lecture for the most part. Trying to keep all my classes straight here. We'll keep them straight. Oh, it is open. Too many things open. Too many things open. So we're kind of winding down here to the very, very end. I need to make this all bigger. Everything's much smaller than it normally is. So today we're talking about print stuff. Next week we're going to do a few layout things, which they're related, but everything kind of links together for these last couple of chapters. So within 13 today, we're going to talk about, oops, I skipped over a chapter. Within chapter 13 today, we're going to talk about just all the print related things and getting things ready for print and just some cool things you can do with the prints and the layouts. But then next week, it's very much related. Chapter 14 is a very short chapter because it is talking about a layout for print and web, and it is very much related to what we're doing this week. So I'm going to split part of chapter 13 and what we're doing within there and work it into what we're going to talk about next week, because I think it probably makes more sense there. And then I have the two projects, the layout project's very minimal, but I have the two projects that I want you guys to do before we get to the very end. So we just have this chapter, a little bit in 14, and then the final. And next week too, we'll talk about what you're going to be doing for the final and go over that stuff, especially since chapter 14 is so short. We'll be talking about all of those things. But yeah, it's going to wind down really quick. So today's plan, I need to make sure my screen's working the way I want it to. I just need anything but what I have been using because I'm sick of using the same images. What I want to talk about today is getting things ready for print and some things that you can do when you're getting images ready for print. And this is more like creating print packages. So if you want to print 2 5x7s on a sheet off to your printer, if you have a smaller printer, if you want to print like a bunch of 2x3s, that kind of stuff, or create contact sheets, or create your own custom layouts. That's what we're going to talk about today, is how to create all those pieces. And it really isn't too hard, but there's some little tricks along the way, obviously. But you'll see the similarities between maybe adjusting padding and stuff like that, or borders, kind of like you did within your books and your slideshow. So a lot of that will be similar, but overall, I really like this print module and what you can do with it. And you can actually take what you do here and put it into your books if you want to. You can it's kind of like creating custom layouts to put in various different situations, like a book. I like using it for collages and for online stuff, so we'll talk about those pieces and we'll go through that. But I'm going to follow through just a few things of what he did within this book. Otherwise, I just want to show you a bunch of different things within this print module. So what I'm going to do is just narrow it down to a handful of photos here. And I'm going to go into the print module. Now we've done the book, we've done the slideshow, and the next one on the list is print. And just like the other ones, we have a bunch of different things that we can open and close from here. And I have mine set to only open one at a time, so it closes all the other ones. And we want to pay attention to the first 3 options under layout style, but I'll come back to that in just a second. What we also have that is kind of cool is Lightroom has some pre-built templates in there for printing. Things like contact sheets. So if I wanted to print off all of these images onto a contact sheet, like for some of you that are in advanced photo, you need a contact sheet for your final project. This would be a very fast way to create something like that. But there are several different options that are available. I'm trying to figure out why my page is a ridiculous size. Seem to fill photo border. Rulers, guides. It's kind of a ridiculous size. I don't know why it's doing that. I think it's set. No, because I have not saved it. That's driving me nuts. Custom file dimension. Let's make this a letter. Drink. There we go. That's my problem. Now they're all fixed. So much better. Okay, so we want to talk about what we can do and how we can create some of this and even the stuff that exists already. So the templates, even if you just flip through some of the templates, what you're going to see, and I'm going to pick one of these Lightroom templates. That's a 5x7 and 4 2.5 by 3.5. So it's 5x7 and 4 wallets is essentially what it is. So I just grabbed a template that falls on that left-hand side under the Lightroom templates, and I see that I actually have 20 images selected right now, but I only see one image on a page. And one thing to pay attention to when you're working in the print module is down here in the lower right-hand corner, it says page 1 of 20. The 3 options that I told you about in that layout style, these are the differences between each of them. I can print that first option, which is just an image or a contact sheet. So I can choose to have one image on a page and choose the size of that image, or I can have multiple images like a contact sheet, and each box will be filled in with a different image depending on how many I have selected. Then I have what's called a picture package. And when you have a picture package, what typically happens is you have a sheet and you're printing an image per sheet at probably various sizes. Then the custom package is where we can really just customize anything, any size, that kind of stuff, and tweak it and do whatever we want. So it's good to know the 3 options. And as you play with it, you'll understand a bit more of what those 3 options really give you. But right now with the template I selected, it's assuming I want one image per page, and that of all the images I have selected, I want a 5x7 and 4 wallets of each of those images. And I can flip to all the different pages. On the left-hand side, there's a few arrows, and I can go to the next page, and I can see exactly what the image looks like at each of those layouts. I'll show you how you can adjust those in a little bit. Let's just pick something that I know needs to be adjusted, like this one. And from here, I can actually just send it to print if I'm good to go. I can change some of my print settings, and I can go and send it right to the printer. So it makes it very quick and easy to go through and do that stuff. But there are times where we want to make it a little bit more fun. Like maybe you want a nice fine art looking print. You have a large format printer. You want to print a larger sheet, but you want it to be matted with your name on it. We can create that in here. And that's kind of going to be our goal, is to go through and just the different settings of how we can customize that. I'm actually going to pick in the template browser under the Lightroom templates. There's actually a template built in called Fine Art Matte. And I'm going to start with that one, and I'm going to tweak it. I want it to fit and do certain things. So it gives me a starting point, and when we think fine art matte, it's not a matte that's typically even all the way around. You know, a lot of times what happens is you have either maybe at the top or the bottom, you have a little bit more space so you can add some stuff to it. But now what happens when I select this, now this is one of those layouts that's a single image layout. So if I were to select all 20 images, I would have 20 pages to print. Now with this one, the problem that I have is it's very, like, it's not filling up the space. So as you can tell, this is a vertical portrait. The space that I have to work in is actually a square, and my image is not filling that square. And I would probably want that to fill just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start playing with some of the settings that I have here. So I'm going to look at these image settings, which is the next tab down on the right hand side, and I do have a couple of options. So I have a choice of zoom to fill, which is really what I want to check, because now it will fit my image within the space that's allotted for it. It's not placing it exactly where I want, so I do have to move it a little bit, but I can easily do that by mousing over and grabbing and dragging the photo and replacing it exactly where I want. And now I've made this a little bit better. If I were to print, this is actually set to an 8.5 by 11, but the print is actually an 8 by 10 print. And then the guides have been changed just to bring it up a little bit. And I'll show you to fix all that. Now I do have a rotate to fit option so that if the image is horizontal and the box space is vertical, it will actually rotate the image to fit within there. So I can check that box if necessary. And this repeat one photo per page, I'm going to leave that unchecked for now because it really does nothing for what I am doing quite yet. But once we have multiple images on a page, we can change that, and I'll show you what that does. I do also have the option to put a stroke around my images. Now I don't use it too much, but what I do use it would be, let's say I have my background a solid color, or I want a white border around my images. I would print that. I have, and I think it's in the closet actually. I'll have to bring that out. I have these little proof books that I often print for people. And when I print these proof books, the binding, it's like a spiral bound book, and the binding eats into part of the image. So if I'm printing this myself, usually it's a 4x6 book, and if I'm printing it myself, I like to put a little border around all of the pictures so that when it's punched for spiral bound, that it actually it eats into the border and not the picture. So it works really well. So when I do use borders, it's for things like that, or just to create a fake mat around my image, essentially, is another way to think of it. So you can check that on, and then you can adjust how wide that border is, and you can see how it adjusts your image within there. And then obviously you can change the color if you want to. In this case, I'd probably leave it black because it's on a white background. Or maybe a really dark gray. I just don't like that with the red. Let's pick a red and then make it darker. Yeah, I like that a little bit better on this one. So I can zoom to fill. Now here's the thing. If you have multiple images selected, like because this is one image per page, just because of the way the template's laid out, it will automatically take every image I have selected and it's going to put it on a different page like we talked about in flip through just before. The only downfall to this is that every page, whatever settings I make, every page is going to be that way. So if I'd rather have a black border on one page and a darker red border on another page, I can't customize that per page. It's going to be each one. So there is a way around that. You would just create multiple prints, and just like in your books, if I look up here, so I have that create saved print option so that I can save this and go back to it and everything shows up like it's supposed to. I can just create multiple ones, and that's not really a big deal. But yeah, if you're trying to customize it to a certain extent, it's going to be the same on all pages. So just know that that's what that's going to do. But what I do have the option of doing is each page I can adjust the image within that box. So it's not going to shift all of them. Each image I can then go through and adjust. The hard thing is remembering to do that. That's usually what gets forgotten. The only other thing that I'm not a fan of in this print module is I can't zoom my pictures like I could in my book, or if I click on it and I can zoom those in and out. I can't do that here. It's either zoom to fill or uncheck that, and then it just gives me my box. So I don't have that option here, and that is just a bit frustrating. So I could go through and adjust every single page, which is great. But that border is going to be the same no matter what I do. Oops, I forgot this one. So I would actually have to crop that in Lightroom to get it to fit a certain way if that's what I wanted to do. Now I could go a little bit further. Maybe I don't want a white background, but we know Doug does, so we're going to leave it. Now, if we don't want that white background, but we like the print and how that lays out, how it looks like a mat, we can still change that. We can go into the page drop down itself, and you can see there's a checkbox for changing the background color. So right now it's white by default. I can go in, I can make it dark gray, I can make it black, I can do whatever it is I want to do. You're gonna notice that this particular layout still has a white border around the edge. It's just because it's set to a specific printer, and that's just showing where it can and can't print. So it's essentially an 8x10 image that's matted down, but the printer won't let me go all the way to the edge, and that's where the rest of the white comes from on the top and the sides at least. The bottom is just because it's an 8x10 print on an 11-inch media. But then I would just print it and cut it down to an 8x10 is how that would play out. So I could change the background color. I could also, let me make this, debating how light I want it. I can also add my identity plate. This is cool for fine art type prints. So if you want a matted print with your name on it, or you're going to let's say you're doing like your portfolio showcase, or you're going to an art show and you're trying to sell some of your prints, it's cool to have, I really like seeing when you have an easel stand of who the photographer is and like they're like a matted print essentially with their name on it and stuff like that, almost like a marketing piece. And that's kind of a nice piece to have. And you could do that within here if you wanted to. And by that, you would just play with that identity plate that we've been using all along. Nice thing is on a print, it's not anchoring to things. You can put it wherever you want. And then you can make it however big or small you want. I should turn, where's my guide? Snapping, why isn't it not snapping to the middle? There's a couple different places where this all is. I need to open multiple things here. I need to turn this off. It doesn't matter where that stuff is. Page, margin, page. I want my snapping turned on. Guides, photo cells, dimensions. Why is it not snapping? I should be able to snap that to the center, and it's not. I have got to be missing that checkbox. Where is it hiding? Guides, image cells, dimensions. I don't need that. Well, that's not cool. I thought there was just a checkbox right here for my snapping. I guess not. All right, well, we'll eyeball it. So I can put my identity plate just like we did before. If you don't like it, you have that tiny little drop down arrow, and then you can go in and you can edit, you can change it, you can add another one. You can click that lovely checkbox like we did with the slideshow and override the color if you would rather a different color. Put logos on it, whatever it may be. But you have a lot of flexibility with this. And I can, just like we did with the other ones, change the guides. So if I'd rather a narrow print, I can make a narrow print with my name on it. Or if I'd rather a more elongated print, I can do that too. So you can grab any of the guides. You can go into the actual layout tab, and this is where I can also drag the guides if I would rather drag it that way. These will all work individually. So when I drag the left, it only does the left. It's not linked like within the slideshow where I would have to unlink them and then move each of the guides separately. They actually all work individually from the get-go. Now I want, can I keep that square? There we go. There. Get it back to where it was. That background's gonna drive me nuts, just for now. So now I essentially have my print ready to go. I can select the one or multiple images that I want. I can get it ready, I can send it off, and it's good to go. So the templates work well for something like that. And it is very easy to customize and play with. Grab the corners, drag, that kind of stuff. But that's a single image. Let's say I want to print multiple images on one page. So if I want to print multiple images on one page, I'm going to select another template that already exists so you can see. When we create custom ones, you'll see how you can build these on your own. But what I like to do a lot of times is I start from a template and then I just tweak it. And you can always resave it as a new one if you tweak it and you like that, so that you're not doing it every time. So I'm going to select this time. This one's going to allow us to do multiple images. And what I'm going to select is the 2x2 cells. Now this one is set for 2 rows and 2 columns. So it's 4 images per page. And then as I click on images and it fills up those cell spaces, it's just going to keep adding pages as needed. So this is like a very basic contact sheet where I would have 4 on a page. So I can start selecting. I only have 1 image selected at the moment, but I can go in and now I can select 4 images. It puts 4 different images on this page. If I select more than that, now it goes on to a second page, and I can see in that lower right corner, it now says page 1 of 2. And then I can flip to those 2 pages. I can still choose if I want to zoom to fill, but usually with this and being a contact sheet, But one checkbox that you might want to use is rotate to fit. If you want them to fill that box, you can rotate those horizontal images so that you can get a bigger print out of it, or a bigger image to print. Like if I were printing a contact sheet for someone, I might do it this way just so that they can see it larger, because otherwise those horizontal images are much smaller on the page. But then you're flipping the page, turning it back and forth, so that annoys people too. So it would just be a matter of preference. But that would be one instance where you might want to check rotate to fit. But as you can tell, it's a different image per page, or I mean per box. It's a different image. If I wanted one image to repeat per page, that's where I would select that repeat one photo per page. And now it prints 4 up, but the same image on every single page. I have yet to find a really good use for the repeat one photo per page, because usually if you have multiple boxes and it's more of a contact sheet or a custom layout, you want different multiple images to be able to drag in there. So I don't find that I use the repeat one photo per page that often. I think the only time I've done it is when I did a custom layout for a birthday invitation. And I just wanted to print 2 on a sheet. So I did it in Photoshop and I brought it back into Lightroom when I was done. And then I selected that, and I selected, I think it was the, was it 2 5x7s? I don't remember what size page. But I selected the 2, and then it was laid out like a contact sheet. So I clicked one image per page so that it was just the invitation filling the page. And then I could print 2 invitations on one sheet. That's the only example I have of how I've used it. Take it or leave it. That's all I got. But that's how I've used it before. Otherwise, I don't use it too often, but that would be an instance where you could use it, because otherwise each box is different. And if you only have 3 images or you don't have enough to fill a page, it just doesn't fill the page. Like I only have 7 images selected, so on the second page there's only 3 images. It will just keep filling as you select images to put in there. If I take out one and I switch some around, it shifts it all, and it just puts them on there in order. Trying to think if I want to tweak anything in here. Well, I suppose I could. I mean, you can tweak this a little bit more if you wanted to. I could choose, where did it go? There it is. I mean, there's other templates already laid out for this, but when you have something that's like a contact sheet where you have a different image in each box, you might want more rows, more columns, and you can do that in the Layout tab. So I could choose, instead of 2 rows, maybe I want 3 rows and only 2 columns. And then I can fit more images on a page. Granted, in the template browser, there are some with more on per page, but you can certainly change it here too. So I can just keep increasing and decreasing or whatever until I get exactly what I want. So if I want all 20 images to fit on one page, I can just select a 4x5 and then it would all fit. And now they're pretty small, so I'd probably rotate to fit so that people can see that. I'm going to bring this back down just so you can see this though. Let's do it this way. You, I want at 2, you, I want at 3. Now the other thing too is the padding in between there. So not only do I have to worry about when I have multiple images on a page, do I want a space in between them, but how big is that space? And then right below, in that, it's all in that layout. So I can choose the margin, the overall margin for the page that I have. But I also have the cell spacing, both vertical and horizontal. So I can actually bring it down to 0 so that everything butts up against each other. Especially if I rotate to fit or zoom to fill, it will just completely fill that space. There we go, uncheck that. But the cell spacing is where you would go to change that. And there might be another reason why you would change that, which we'll look at in a second. But you don't have to worry about doing that in that layout, because I always forget where in those different tabs everything is, because you can do a lot of that when you're on the page. So I can take the page and I can just grab and drag those just like you guys did in the book. And I find that to be a bit easier anyway. So I would rather do it that way. That's why I can never remember where it is. Because I just adjust and it works. So within there, I have all of that. I'm trying to think if I want to add this stuff right now or if I want to wait a little bit. Yeah, let's do it. If I were making this a true contact sheet, I would add information about the photo below it. So for example, if you're in advanced photo right now and you have to do your contact sheet for your final project and you have to do all 20 images and I want to, let's say I want to fit them all on a page. So, you need 20 images for your portfolio. So I would probably make there's actually one built in here, a 4x5 contact sheet. But I can also just adjust this one so that all 20 images fit on one page. You can see it gets a little crammed. I might increase some of the cell spacing because I'm about to add more text. But down under the page, I find this to be it's kind of a weird spot for this to be. I would rather it be in the layout or under the image settings, because if I'm doing things with the image and I want the text to go with it, to me, that makes a little bit more sense. But it's hiding under the page tab. Way at the bottom is photo info, and it's just a checkbox. And these are all the different metadata presets that way back in chapter like 1 or 2 we talked about. And we can choose from this drop down exactly what we want or change it to fit what we need. So if I'm doing this for my final project for advanced photo, I know I need the title of my image, which if I'm doing a contact sheet for the most part, that's all I need. Because if I do a contact sheet, I've done it for weddings before. They didn't want it online. They wanted just a contact sheet booklet. So I created a book, a bound book. And again, so I had to play with my margins a little bit here because it was bound. So I had to bring in my left margin to compensate for the hole punching that was going to happen. Brought in that left margin a little bit. I crammed a bunch of photos on one page. I want to say I put like 16 per page, just enough so that they could see the detail. And then all I needed was the file name. So if they said, I want that print, they just had to give me the name of the file, and then I would pull it and print it. But if you need more detail, and especially more than what's there, there is an exposure option. So it does give you the exposure settings. But in our case, I'm going to need a little bit more. So I'm just going to edit one of these templates, and I'm going to add more to it. So I'm going to add the file name. I'm going to make it first. So I want the file name. I want the exposure settings. But for exposure, I also want the ISO. Let's do ISO. Add that one. And the date, that's the other thing. The date the photo was taken. I need some spaces. This is ridiculous. Space, space, space. That's better. Okay. So now I have exactly what I want. And I am going to save it as a new preset. I don't necessarily have to. I can leave it as an edit, but if I want to go back to this in the future, file name, exposure, and date, just so that I know what it is. So I just created a new preset on the fly, and when I hit done, it's going to add all that information to it. The problem I see is that the date only has the year. I need to fix that. The date. Darn, so close. There we go. Let's swap that out. There. I want that to read differently. That's bothering me. Let's do it that way maybe. I don't know if that I'm gonna like, but we'll go with it. Okay. Let's adjust that. There we go. So now it has all my information crammed on there, but all I have to do is set that once and then everything is good to go. I can change the font size though, if it's a little bit too big, and I would rather it be 8. Come on. But why are we suddenly not showing? Everything was there. Okay, that was weird. Everything was there and then it disappeared and now it's back. Well, at least we fixed it. So I can change the font size a little bit smaller, but all it takes is the checkbox with the photo info, and then I can choose what I want to add to it. So this, for example, would be how I would make a contact sheet for, I've done it for weddings, or you would do it for your final project, and then you would just send it to the printer and it's good to go. So hopefully that makes sense. Start with the template where you can. That's my biggest recommendation. So I started with the 2x2 template and then I tweaked it. Trying to see if I'm missing anything major as I'm walking through the book here. I don't think I need to, because I really want to just play with the custom ones. That's what I want to do. Those are the fun ones. Okay, yep, I've covered all that stuff. Okay, so if I wanted to do this whole multiple images on a page thing, I could start out with something that's like a contact sheet, but I could make it much cooler. than that. I could, let me go back. Let me go back to this 2x2. I'm going to deselect everything for the moment. I'm going to go back to this 2x2. I'm going to start from the beginning with that template. And what I want to create, kind of like a, I don't know, I would use it for a cover sheet. That's probably how I would use it. Okay, I need a space. I need space to draw, but I need to look that up. It's like I'm rewriting things today. Okay, so I want this sheet, I want kind of like a little cover sheet, and I want these long skinny boxes. And I want a different image in each box, and then I want name across the bottom. And I want that to be the cover sheet for all the contact sheets for the proof book. Let's go with that scenario. That's what we're going for. So that's what I want. So what I need to think about is, okay, I want 3 images. I want each image to be a different image. And I want my name at the bottom. So if we think about that, we need 1 row and 3 columns. And I have 1, 2, 3 images. Let me select images so that it actually looks like something. There we go. So I want that, but I want them to be long and skinny. So I'm going to increase that, but my images need to fill, so I'm going to do a zoom to fill. I don't want them centered, I don't like that. So the best way to do it is to actually change the page margin. This is where it gets a little tricky, because you want to just grab and change the image size overall. But what that does is it goes, this is the weird part about, and as you play with it, you'll figure it out. But as I drag the image size between my top and my bottom margin, it's centering in between there. So when I'm trying to change that size, it's centering, but I want it to be more toward the top so that I can do other things at the bottom. And this is not allowing me to do that. So what I need to do is change the margin of the page. So I need to actually take the bottom margin and raise it up so that it's faking it to thinking the only print space I have is between my 0.25 top and my 3 inches up from the bottom, or 3.5 inches, whatever it may be. Now when I adjust this, it fits where I want it to, which is kind of cool. And I think I want, do I have to option click those first? No. I think I'm going to bring this into 0.5. I'm just going to type it in here at this point. There we go. So that they're the same. Oh, I need a little bit of spacing. Come on. Come on. I want, oh, it's not going to let me do vertical spacing. Why is it not letting me do vertical spacing? I think I know why. No. Why is it not letting me do it? Height, width. Well, that's weird. Okay, we'll do it this way. So I'm just tweaking this till I get it exactly like I want. And I can move each image individually to fit the space. I don't like the order that's in either. I'm going to change that because I did a vintage effect on 2 of them. Oh, it's going to keep ordering it. All right. How can I?
Can you just move them in the film strip?
I can't. It does it in order. Oh, yeah, you're right. In the film strip here. Let's do that. Oh, but it's going to move all 3. There we go. There. Thank you. Trying to remember how I can fake that. So because I want these in a certain order, I dragged them in the order in the film strip. And then I select them so that they place within here. I'm going to add a small border just because it's a light background. But I don't want it to be that dark. I want it to be kind of in this range. I don't want it to be too much, just enough so that there's a border. And then I can just add my identity plate at the bottom. So now I can add my identity plate, move it down here, make it bigger, center it. I'm going to override the color so that it all matches that grayish color. There we go. And now I basically have everything that I need for the cover sheet that I would like. So all it took was a little bit of tweaking within the different guides, the cell padding, the size, the margins. But I've essentially customized a sheet here. And now I could print that off, and that could be the cover. So I could save this as a template. I might actually do that because I've used something like this before and I've never saved it. So I could save a new preset in my template browser, and I'm going to call it contact sheet cover, and I'm going to save it in my user templates. So now it's hanging out, oops, too far. Now it's hanging out down here somewhere, right there. The one that's highlighted, hello. So there it is. So I took something existing and I customized it.
Do that say preset again, I'm sorry.
Oh, the preset? So up at the top in the template
Oh,
browser
got it.
is a little plus. And then you just have to choose which folder it's going to go within. Defaults to user templates, unless you create your own. On my computer at home, I have a couple of folders that I have named. I just grabbed a few sample ones for you guys, but I have one that's for blog presets. I have one that's for Facebook timeline presets. I have a couple of custom print ones, couple of contact sheet ones. So I created a different folder for each one just to keep them separate and a little bit easier to organize.
Is that overlay 3?
You're talking about with the images? I started with the 2x2 cell contact sheet, and then I just changed it so that it was 1 row and 3 columns. So I changed it in that layout under the page grid section. And then I just played with my guides to place it exactly where I wanted it to be. Now, Scott Kelby has a little thing that he did, and I thought it was kind of cool. It's worth pointing out. So I want to show you. What he did is he tried to create the effect. This took a little bit of time. It's a little more manual than I think is fun. But what he did is he took a contact sheet, and then he had these narrow images just like this, but he has 5. Actually, if you want to see the picture, it's on 449. And he has 5, and what he made it look like was one image split into 5 pieces, which is kind of a cool thing, but it was more manual than anything. So I think it's just a little weird having to do it that way, but it works. So let me show you this. I'm trying to see if I can find, I'm going to have to find a different image to do this too. Do I have any weddings in here? I don't think I do. I do not. But I know in the baseball one I could use this one. Go back to print. Okay, so I want to show you this. I'm just going to use this same template. I just grabbed a horizontal image because I know it will work with it. I kind of wish I had some flowers or something else to use on here, but I don't have any on this computer. So what I have is I have right now one image on this template that I just created. So it's 3 narrow images, but I want to create the effect like it's split up. Now I could add more columns like he did. I mean, he added 5 columns instead of 3. I could certainly do that if I wanted to. 4, 5. I would need the width of my images to be a little bit smaller to create a space. And I want this one ball to appear like it's cut up across the whole page. So what I do need to do is, this is where that repeat 1 photo per page comes into play. If I click that, you can see how it repeats. Now I need to position this in a way where it looks like it's cut up. But the problem I have is when I grab and I drag the photo within the box, it moves all 5. So that's a little bit of an issue. But there is, and apparently it will not work for me. Come on. No. Oh, he did it that way. Oh, sorry. I thought I could just hold on my command key. I've done it differently with a command key. Okay, it's a ridiculous workaround. He created 5 virtual copies of the same image.
That's a lot of work.
So I'm going to uncheck. Sorry, I was thinking something different. That repeat 1 photo thing is not going to work. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to do my create virtual copy option here. Or it's going to be my, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on my quick key. It's not Command V, Option V. Oh no. All right, well, I'm right clicking for the moment because my brain is fried and I can't remember my quick key for virtual copy. That's so bad. Okay, so I have 4 virtual copies of the same image, and I am going to click all of those. So now I have 5 images, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly try and move and match up each one in a different spot. That ball. So I'm telling you, this takes, I think it's more work than it's worth, but if you really want the effect, it's kind of cool. So it's just a matter of chopping it up. I would have probably taken off my identity plate, changed the image, the page size to be, print job. Why do I keep losing it? Right here. Custom file dimension. Change that to be in a horizontal more than anything. Now I gotta change this again. Crud. Can I fake it? No, I can't. So close. Alright, well, let's attempt this. There we go. Right about there, and oh no, I've run out. Man, I should have started at the left. I should not have started at the right. Right about there. I'll get there. Dink. There we go. Now I've got 5 cut across. It's cutting the baseball in a weird spot, but it works. So you could do it that way. I think it's more work than it's worth, but it's worth pointing out because you never know if you want to do it. He has a section, and I'm not going to be going through this in class, but I'll point out the page. I think there's another way to fake that, to be honest. Let me get the page for you. It's toward the end. He created a border, and he imported, it's on page 479 if you had wanted to try this on your own. But what he did is he created a custom border as a Photoshop document with no background. Save that image. I can't remember. I think he saved it as a PNG. Yep, saved it as a PNG. And actually created an identity plate from that image. So he took the border, created the identity plate, made the identity plate the full size of the document, and then when you plop the image in, the image goes underneath, and it makes it look like you have like this brush stroked frame, essentially. So it was kind of a cool way. It's a weird roundabout, again, but it was kind of a cool way of doing it. I bet you could create a border like that. You could easily create a border like this in Photoshop. So everything is white except for those 5 blank spaces that you just knock it out. And then save that as a PNG, make that your identity plate, and then you need 1 image. I think doing this with the way he does it at the end of this chapter would be much easier. So create a white document in Photoshop, select out those 5 spaces, delete the white so that the background is transparent, save the image as a PNG, and then add it as an identity plate that fills your screen. I think that'd be a good way. I think it'd be quicker too. Okay, so one of the other things I want to make sure that I'm pointing out to you is creating your own custom page and what you could do to make one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the I'm going to go back up to the layout style at the very top, and I'm going to choose the custom package. Now, when you choose custom package, you actually get a few different options that you might not otherwise have in some of the other layouts. For the most part, we've been working with the single image contact sheet for all the ones that we've been playing with. If you go into, and I'll just backtrack for a second, if you go into the picture package, what you're going to notice is the cells panel. You actually get pre-built sizes, like typical image sizes that you can then just add to a document. So if I start with a blank one, I'm going to, I don't know, let's think of a size. Let's just say we have a small printer that we use, photo paper. It's 8.5 by 11, and we want to cram as much as we can onto that page. I'm going to go under, so I've selected the picture package layout style, but I changed my page size, so I got to switch mine. But if you want to make sure that your page size is exactly what you want for your particular printer, I'm going to go down under print job, and where it says custom file dimension, mine was checked. So if I uncheck it, it defaults to the printer that I have selected, which uses an 8.5 by 11. But otherwise, I could choose the custom file dimension and select the file size. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do while I'm down in the print job is choose the file resolution, which right now, mine's set to 100 ppi. That's a low resolution. If I was doing this for a web output, that's fine. But I'm assuming I'm going to do this as a print output. So I'm going to change, first of all, I'm going to change my print job. You can see it says print to. I have the option of printer or JPEG. That's why I like using the print module, because I can make cool collages and save it to a JPEG. Or I can send it right to the printer. I'm assuming if I'm creating a print package, I'm sending it right to the printer. So I'm going to check printer. Now it automatically changed my resolution, but if that's still not correct, I would change it from there. And 240 ppi is just fine. That's all that we need. So just by changing it to printer, it adjusted it. Actually, it took my print size away because it's recognizing my printer. But then now what I can do, I want to start this from scratch because I want you to see how you can do this. I can select each one this whole time. I had this. So I'm going to select each one and I'm just going to delete it. I'm just going to start from scratch. Now here's a question. If you're clicking along and not on your phone, do you see page grid or do you see a grid or is it blank? You have a grid? Okay. If you don't have a grid, I like using the grid because I can line everything up. If you don't have a grid, under the rulers, grid, and guides is just a checkbox to turn that on. I find that extremely helpful. Okay, so under the cells, now I can start laying this out however I want. They have some pre-built ones, but no, and use your book as a guide too. You can set your own standards. So if you print certain sizes often, you can set your own by going under edit and then choosing the size, and then it adds it in there. But you can also choose your typical size here. So if I always do, let's say, 5x7, and then I use 4x6 quite a bit. I can actually set the sizes here from the drop down. Yes, it adds it to the page right away, but I'm just going to add it in the order I typically add stuff. And I'll come back to that in a second. There we go. Now let me delete all this. So I just added from my drop down, all I did was just kind of choose the order I typically use when I add stuff to it. And it just creates like the default button. That's what it's doing. I could make an 11x14 if I really wanted to. Let's say I have that as one of my layouts. Add. Yes, I know. I have extra pages. Go away. I didn't want to talk about those yet. So now I have all my default buttons set up the way that I would like. Now I can just click like, oh, I want a 4x6 on this page. Actually, I want 2 of them. I can just click away. Maybe I can squeeze a couple of wallets. Guess not. And as you click, it finds the best place to put these in the picture package, finds the best spot to put them so long as they fit. And then when it runs out of space, it moves it to the next page. So maybe on this page, I want a couple of these and a 5x7. There. And it just automatically fits to the page. But the cool thing is I can grab and move these around. So if I think I can actually squeeze these in a little bit more. Now I can't rotate easily, which is frustrating. I'd have to choose a 6x4 to get it to do that. Or rotate my page and then add it. That's the only downfall. But if I feel like I can get more, I can move these wherever I want. And they will snap. I can overlap them if I want, but they'll snap otherwise. Right up next to each other. Now the difference between working with an image in a picture package and working with it like we have with the single image per page, when I mouse over, I got the hand icon. And then I could just grab and move my image. I can't do that here because it's assuming I want to move the whole box on my page. So the trick to remember is if you don't see the hand icon, you need to hold down the command key. If you don't use picture package a lot, you'll forget it because that's really one of the few times you'll need it. But you have to hold down the command key to get it. One of the other differences you're going to notice in picture package is where before we had a checkbox that said 1 image per page. We don't have that in picture package. It only lets us choose 1 image. It's assuming if I'm doing a package, it's a package of the same picture. So I can only add 1 image per page. I don't have that checkbox. usually what I do in that case is I create a saved print, I print that one off, I select the next image, I print that one off, I select the next image, I print that one off, and then it just goes. Or if actually, let me deselect. Actually, it will automatically recognize that. So if my template, right now, my template is 2 pictures, is 2 pages of pictures. If you do sports pictures, like I know Malik does, you could create your own picture packages if you sell those to people. And usually with sports things, there's 8x10 and smaller for the most part. So you could choose a package of so many 5x7s and so many wallets, and then you could set it up that way because they only choose one image. And this is what we did at the studio. We had these picture packages set up. The template was set up however we needed for that particular package, and we called it package 1, and that contained these prints. So it was set up where you would get 2 4x6s, 1 5x7, and 4 wallets. So then I would be able just to select, okay, well, this guy ordered that package of this print, and this guy ordered a package of this print. And now what it does is it just automatically sets up, it's going to be print 4 pages total, but from 2 images, if that makes sense at all. So it works well for those instances. I think for the majority of you, you'll use picture package very infrequently. But that would be one instance where you would probably use it. Just know that you can customize those. There are picture package templates in Lightroom that you can use to start from or just use because it's set up exactly how you want it. They're always the first handful that are in Lightroom. And then when you do, if you need to move the pictures around, you have to hold on the command key to move those. So if I needed to move Gunner down, there we go. Then I'm good to go. Blink. So I could just send that to the printer and all 4 pages would print. Slice them up, send them on their way. But that's how the cells change and a few other things that change when you select something that's not single image or contact sheet. Now you'll see similarities when you go to custom package. When you go to custom package, you still have the same things that you can choose, but you can really do whatever it is you want. I love doing the custom layouts. I think they're fun. This is where you can start doing collages and overlap things. And you could essentially lay out an entire wedding album if you wanted to in here. If you have a bunch of different pre-built templates, plop the images in and save it as JPEG, send it off to print. So it's kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a custom package. Now the main difference is that it's not 1 image per page. Every box will be a different image, and the cool thing is unlike the other ones where I selected the images across the bottom, I actually have to select the images and grab and drag them. Whoops, and I grabbed multiple ones. Oh, it is. I thought those were a couple different images. Oh, it's over the top. Make that smaller. There we go. So I actually can grab and drag and customize what's going in each box. So that's going to be the difference here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to create a new layout. I'm going to delete everything that's on here. And I just moved my thing. I can only do one at a time. I want to delete all these virtual copies too, because I don't need them now. Great. Well, I wanted to move it to the trash. Come on, am I not going to be able to delete it from here? I don't want to remove from collection. I just want to remove completely. Dang. I'm going to have to do it from here. Go away. Okay. So here's what I want to do. I want to lay out a collage here. So I'm going to have 1 image and 3 smaller images. I think that's what I want to do. I want this to be, I don't know, 16 by 20 print. Let's go bigger. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to select, I think I'm just going to lay this out as a JPEG. So I'm going to go under print job. I'm going to lay this out as a JPEG so that I can choose a custom file size. Because I could probably go in my print settings, but I know I'm hooked up to this black and white printer and that's not going to work well. I don't know if this computer, let me try something here. No, I'm not hooked up to this one. I was going to say I don't have this laptop hooked up. You can if you want to. Now, I like going just under the JPEG file because that's usually how I save it out and then send it off to the printer. But because I upload my stuff to a lab rather than print it off myself. But you could also go to page setup and then you could customize a specific page. So I could, here we go. I could select, I've already set up a, 16 by 20 horizontal print. And I could select that and it would adjust it, but it just did it vertical. Should I not have done that? There we go. So I can go under page setup or I would go under JPEG and then I would adjust the size there. So I have a blank page. I'm in the custom package layout and now what I want to do is I just want to plop my image on there. I want an image. I'm gonna just plop an 8 by 10. The cool thing is it doesn't even matter what you put because I can grab and drag this and make it whatever size I want. So I'm gonna put, I think I want this to be a bit narrower. Or do I don't know, we'll play with it, see what it looks like. I know I don't want a white background because I know Doug doesn't want a white background. So I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna go under my page. I'm gonna change my page color. I'm gonna make it black. The only hard part is no matter what you change it to, they'll float around, but they're empty essentially. So it's kind of hard to, you're kind of guesstimating with stuff. Okay, now I'm gonna add some square things in here. I'm gonna add another one, but I want this one to be a square. So I'm still in my cells. I'm gonna change this. I want this to be like a 4 by 4. Let's see what that does. That's a good size. Let's do that. And I think I'm just gonna add 3 of these. And I'm going to hold down my Option key, grab the box, and I'm just gonna drag it over. So it's duplicating is what it's doing. So just like you would duplicate by holding down your Option key in Photoshop, I can do it here. I really need this to snap, and I know it snaps, and I can't figure out why. Grid snap, there we go. I guess I can't do it in the other ones, because that did not show up in my, it did show up here. It doesn't show up here. There, that's why. It's my custom, or it's my image, single image, it doesn't show up. I'm like, I know it's there. It just doesn't show up here. Okay, snap to grid. Oh, so much better. Snap to grid. Space this properly. Actually, let's do a snap to cells. That's better. So much better. Okay. So I have a white outline. I have a border checked right now. I could probably uncheck that if I wanted to, but regardless, at least that white bounding box stays there so that I can see it. I find this very weird. I don't like this at all. I'm gonna make this longer. The only thing I don't like is I can't select multiple boxes. It only lets me select one, so I can't highlight all 3 and then drag them all together. I have to drag them one at a time. I'm hoping that's something in the near future that they update, because that drives me nuts. I want one more of these. Let's bring it up here. There we go. Okay. So I have this custom layout. It's 16 by 20 with 8 by 10-ish. It's bigger than that though. And then 4 4x4s surrounding it. So I've created a custom template. I'm going to save this so I don't have to do it again. And it's horizontal, so I'll type in 20 by 16 so that I know that. I'll just call it 1 large, 4 square. We'll make up something. Great. Save it. Okay, now I can plop pictures in. So I've created this template. I can do whatever it is I want to do. And I probably don't even have a horizontal image that I can use in this one. Sure. Let's just go there. There's one. Let's plop in. Do I really only have those few of that child? Apparently. We'll put Hunter here, and we'll put Hunter here. There we go. But I do still have to do the same thing here. So I have to hold down my command key to be able to move my images within there. So just like the other one, I have to do it that way. I don't really have a way around it. Do not like that image, but we're gonna go with it. So let's say that's what I want. Sure, it works. I can certainly do that. But now I have a 16 by 20 collage. I mean, I can do more fun things. I can have a vertical image like he has. I actually like the example that he has as kind of a cool collage. On 453, what he did is he has 3 images across the top, and then he has his identity plate in the middle. And then he has more images on the bottom. It's a really cool looking collage, is what he created. So this can serve many, many purposes. There's one other thing with creating custom ones. So you can really go crazy doing custom layouts. You can add text to it just like we did before. It would be more photo information or an identity plate. There really isn't much as far as adding a ton of text to it. It would really be the identity plate is what you would choose. Otherwise, you kind of have the limit of photo info, which kind of stinks. But that's about the extent that you have. You can add watermarks to all of your prints if you want to. So you can do that. Just know if they overlap, it's going to show overlapping and it looks a little weird. But you can also, just like in your book, one last thing you can do with a custom print, you can also add a washed background if you want. And I know only a few people preferred the washed background. We know Zoe doesn't like the background with a picture over the top. It's the same thing here, but you can change the opacity of it. If you had wanted to add that to your book, I'm thinking book now because we were just talking about that. If you wanted to add that to your print, he does talk about it on 463. So he has this screened background look. And basically what he did is he chose a photo that he wants as the back screened image. He created a virtual copy of it, and then he lightened the image significantly because you can't change the opacity within here. Again, it's one of those things where I love the print module, but I hate some of its limitations. And that's one of the things that I hate because you can't just have a background wash. It's not like a checkbox that you can say, wash this as the background and it lightens it. It's something where you have to create a duplicate copy and take all the contrast and everything out of it and just lighten the heck out of it so that it appears washed. You have to create that. And then you can add it as like an identity plate in the background. So it is a little strange. But if you did want to play around with that, I'm not going to do that today. But if you wanted to play around with it, it's on 463. There's a few parts of this chapter you'll want to do on your own. That would be one of them if you want to play around with it.
I had a question on the assignment.
Yeah.
The print project collection.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Aha.
You can save it.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Okay.
We'll talk about the assignment in a little bit.
Okay. Along in doing so.
Yeah, I'll go through that in just a few moments, actually. So I want you to think for a moment. I've shown you a few things. I've kind of rattled through a few different options and those three main package, single image, print package, custom layout. I could beat this down even more, but I don't find that necessary because most of it, as you play, you figure it out. You'll probably use the custom layout more than anything else. I can tell you that right now, unless you're doing a contact sheet. But I want you to think for a second, like how do you think you could use the print module aside from just printing a straight photo? But think about creating different layouts. What are some ways you could use these layouts aside from the contact sheet or a large collage?
Taken the JPEG, brought it back in, and put it in your slideshow.
And put it in your slideshow. Yeah, so you could save these as a JPEG. You could bring it in. It could be your book layout. So it's a totally customizable book layout. It could be a slideshow thing. There's many different ways to use these. Can you think of other ones? I want to bring up Chrome for a second here.
Like Christmas cards?
Yes, you could make your business cards in here. You could. That would be awesome. What?
She said Christmas.
Or Christmas cards. I thought you said business. Sorry. Yes, you can make your Christmas cards in here. You totally could. Lightroom print templates. Google it once. You'd be amazed what you find. Yeah, you could make your Christmas cards. You could make your business cards. So you'd almost have to double it up though. If you wanted to do you could do both. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Think about that. So your Christmas cards. So you want multiple images on your card. So you build your Christmas card as a layout. Maybe it's like a 5x7 print is what you want to send out for your Christmas card. And then you could create a print package from that. So you save it as a JPEG. And then you bring your Christmas card into the print module where you have two 5x7s on a page. And then you just plop them in that layout. If you have to create it, you have to create it. And then you can print it straight from there. So you can fit multiple ones on a page. You could do that with your business cards. So you could create the 2 by 3.5, or depending on how you want to do it, sized business card with multiple images if you want it, front and back. You could do front and back. There is an add page option under the cells. So I have, here's one. I could do new page and add a second page. So you could create the front and back of your business cards in one template. And then you save the JPEGs. And then on an 8.5 by 11 page, plop a bunch of cells, like do the print package, and then plop your business card in front and back. You totally do that. There are probably some that exist. What?
You want to write all that down?
You could totally do that. Yeah, I'll write it down.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I'll do it. But even if you Google, I was amazed at how much I found. I mean, think even beyond that too. From marketing standpoint, you could create marketing pieces in here and have multiple images on a page. You could do, if you do a blog of your photography work, you can actually, there's a ton out there. I downloaded a couple just to show you. But you can find blog templates. So typically when you do blog templates, people think ahead to Pinterest and pinning, that kind of stuff. So you can create or find blog templates, plop the images in there. It could be a sneak peek for a client. It could be a cover photo for something. But they have Facebook layouts. There's timeline layouts. It's not just limited to blogs. Was it this one? This website, it's called flourishphotog.com. And they had a bunch of different templates, and it takes forever to download if you want them for free. But if you want all of them, you can pay like $20 and get them all in one swift movement, rather than download them one by one. But they had a ton of different ones in here. There were collages, there were templates. Here's your Facebook timeline photos or your Facebook cover photos. And they're all laid out already, which is kind of, there's your holiday card templates. They've got a couple in there already. The one I enjoyed that I found actually on this site I was actually working on creating it myself, but I was doing it in Photoshop, and then I came across it. Is it this one? Come on. Any day now. My fan is working overtime. It sounds like an airplane's taking off. Oh, no, that's not the one. Thought it'd be buried in here. Crud. Where is it? Single photo. Oh. All preview. There it is. I found it on this website and I loved it. I thought this is such a great idea. So I'm working on this right now. Like I'm measuring to scale a couple different walls, taking pictures of them with furniture in front of it, and then doing a size comparison. So if your wall is this big, here's how your print would look on a wall. From an 8 by 10 all the way to a 30 by 40. But this is done in Lightroom. So you would create the image, the wall image itself as the identity plate in the background, and then you would just add and scale down each of the boxes for each of those sizes. So like when I tested it, I had 2 prints. And you could totally do this on your own if you wanted to. So I took a picture of the wall without anything on it, furniture below it, and then I had a couple pieces either of cardboard or like a paper bag, and then I cut those to size. So I just cut a couple of them so that I could gauge. So I had like an 8 by 10. I had a couple of them together. I had a big box, so I had a huge piece of cardboard that I cut to a 30 by 40. And then I hung those on the wall. So I had my camera on a tripod and I didn't move it. And I had those on the wall. And then I used the ones with the placeholders, my cardboard, and I brought it into Lightroom, created my boxes for all the different wall sizes. And then I just swapped out my identity plate to be the one without the boxes or the paper on the wall. So I had a clean wall, and then I had all these different sizes. So that's what I was working on. And then I go and I find that, and I'm like, oh, crud. So it was already done for me, and here I was creating it from scratch. But you can create that in Lightroom so that you take the one photo they're thinking of putting on their wall. And here's what I would do. Now, this comes from a portrait standpoint, so if you're selling prints, fine art prints, portrait prints, anything where it would be large prints on a wall, I'd create this. And I'm just talking about it now because this is what I'm working on. Create this, but don't have a background. Have them send you a picture of where they want to hang it. Put their picture as the identity plate, and then when they come in to look at the different sizes or buy prints and stuff like that, then you can say, here's your living room. Here's what a 16 by 20 would look like in your living room. Here's what an 8 by 10 would look like in your living room. And then they can actually see it on their wall. I mean, how cool would that be to upsell something of yours when they can actually see what that actual size would look like on their wall? So it works really, really well. But yeah, I was trying to create a template of that, and then here it is. I had a problem with this one, though, because the image didn't travel with it, and it has to link properly. So I had to rework it a little bit. It took a little bit of time. So I'm just putting my own image up instead, but I have the boxes all laid out. So there are so many things that you can use it for. I mean, you could just Google some of these templates and just see the possibilities. Obviously, you could probably just grab and use some of these for certain things, but just thinking about how you could use those and then customizing it to use it yourself is pretty awesome too. There are just so many things that you can do. If you're in social media marketing, I don't know, does he go through, I'm trying to think if he does it in that class, but does he go through the different sizes for images that you would post some places? Like if you have a Facebook timeline, and if you do an Instagram post, and if you do, I don't know if he does it in that class. He does it in one of his classes, but not that one. But there's a couple of classes just from a marketing standpoint where you have to look up the different pixel dimensions for all different areas of social media and how you would use that. And you could just create those templates in here, plop your images, and then go, which is kind of fun. I probably wouldn't do it for Instagram, but I'd probably do it for all the other ones. So yeah, I have a blog. I have a couple of blog ones. This one's, the couple I grabbed for you guys are from this site that I was just looking at. So now I can just, here's like my preview for his pictures. Oh, need one more horizontal. Yes, I got one. There we go. And then I can just export that as a JPEG, upload it to Facebook, upload it to a blog, and it's done. So it saves a bunch of time when you're doing it in Lightroom already, rather than bring it into Photoshop and have a template in Photoshop. For something like this is so much quicker. So just think of the possibilities. There are a lot. Did anyone have questions with any of those? Like I said, a lot of it's clicking and playing. So I kind of flew through parts of it just because I know as you play you'll get it. Okay. So what I encourage you to do now, we'll talk about the end of what Scott Kelby does in chapter 13. We'll be talking about that as part of what we do next week. So just getting some of the print settings and some of the very basic things like making sure you have the right profile, stuff like that. I still struggle myself with printing straight from Lightroom to a printer and having the color accurate. But there are a couple of settings, and there's a couple settings I know I have to play with, and it'd probably fix it. But just some of those things as you're getting ready to print. What to look for, what to make sure you're checking. And that wraps up the rest of chapter 13. And then there's the layout stuff. So doing things for web and for print. So it's some of the things that we've talked about already, but it's just kind of taking it to the next level. Like if you're doing different layouts for social media, we'll actually just lay out a couple of those next week. So don't worry too much that I threw some of those ideas at you, because we'll be working on some of those specific things next week and play with a couple different layouts. And that's what chapter 14 is about. So that'll be the plan. But I want you to play around in this print module to start with. And we'll work with some layout stuff next week. So for your assignment this week, I made it pretty specific as to what you're doing with each one of these. But what you're going to do is you're just going to select a handful of photos and create a new collection and just call it Print Project. So they can be photos of any kind from anything. Just select them all, create a new collection, label it Print Project. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just basically follow the exact steps and set it up exactly how it is. And then you'll create a saved print from each one. So for the first one, it's an 8.5 by 11. It's using the single image contact sheet from the layout style, that very top panel. And you're basically just going to create a borderless multi-photo contact sheet. So it's going to be a contact sheet with 2 rows, 2 columns, but you have to set the margins specifically. So you're going to change the margins to 0. The cell spacing is going to be set at 0. But then I have a very specific cell height to put in there. So when you're in there, let me go back to this. When you're in there, there's cell size, and you're going to have to set the exact size, height, and width that you want to use. Let's see, add a border, click a couple of things like rotating to fit, zoom to fill, that kind of stuff. And then you're going to save that, and it's going to be saved within the collection, and it's going to be called My 4x4. So in here at the top is Create Saved Print. And that's what you're going to click and label it My 4x4 so that it saves it within the collection. Then you're going to create another one, but this one you're going to use a custom layout, and then you're going to do a custom image using the custom overlap by 3 border template. Here we go. So built in Lightroom, I need to change this. So you're going to start with a template in Lightroom here. So you're going to use the custom overlap ×3 border template. And that's this one. oops, border. So you're going to start with this template, and then you're just going to do some specific things to it. You're going to use 4 of your images. You're going to leave the background color white. Make sure that it has a white photo border, and then you're going to save it, and you're going to call it My Overlap 3. So you're putting your images in there, and then you're saving that one. That's what you're going to do. Now here's one thing that you're going to find when you do this. As you tweak it and do all that stuff, and you put your images in there, I'm just going to grab 3. Need 3 vertical images. This one, and this one. So I'm going to plop the 4 images in there. One thing you may find, it might not do it with this one. I think this one will hold. Okay. It's usually, let me just show you something that might happen. I don't want you to freak out if it happens to you. When you create things like this contact sheet, let me select a contact sheet. You'll set the contact sheet up like you want it to be. I'm just going to change this a little bit so that it, what is this thing doing? 4, oh, 2 by 4, oh, because I only have, what is this thing doing? Select an image, select a bunch. Okay. Check that out. What is going on? I don't know why this is so messed up. Okay, we'll go with that. There we go. So for example, when you get this set exactly how you want, and you do everything there is that you need to do for it, and then you create the saved print, I'm just going to call this contact. What often happens when you go out of it and click back in, if you accidentally deselect your images, or in the process you deselect your images, you'll see it goes completely blank, and everyone freaks out when that happens. Your template is still there, and everything is still set exactly how you want it. It's just that the images were deselected. So if that happens to you, if you're freaking out and want to make sure it's still set correctly, just reselect your images, and then it will repopulate it in there. It's because it's based on how many images are selected, it places it inside each of those placeholders for contact sheets and single images. So when and if that happens, just know it's just deselected. But your images that you've selected for that project are still there. The template is still saved as is. It's just that it's been deselected, or maybe only 2 are selected that time. So do not freak out when that happens. If it's still not working after you select your images, then there's a different problem. But I highly doubt that's going to happen, so you should be fine. But that will happen with this contact sheet, not this custom layout. So those are the first 2. The next one is going to be a fine art mat that you're going to create. So you're going to use the fine art mat template. You're going to turn on zoom to fill, pick an image, but then you're going to add certain things like file name, exposure, ISO, focal length, set the font size to 16, and then you're going to save that one. This last one, or I shouldn't say, yeah, this last one, you're going to create a 13 by 9 custom layout. So this one you will either go into page, and I'll put a note there. You're either going to go into page setup and create that size document, or you could do this like we talked about under print job, where you do a JPEG file and then you custom size that JPEG to be a 13 by 9. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to lay it out. You're going to do a picture package, and then you're going to include 5 different cells. You can choose whatever sizes that you want, but you need at least 2 different sizes. So you're essentially creating a blank picture package at a specific size, and then you're just going to add the different cells that you want. So if it's a 13 by 9, I want to add this, this, this. I don't know, you just kind of lay it out, and then just add a picture to it. So it just needs to have at least 2 different size prints on that page, and 5 pictures get printed on there. So you can Tetris that however you want. And then all you're doing is saving everything. So you're going to save that custom layout, and this is where everyone freaks out. Your images get deselected and your template's blank. So they go to save it out and there's nothing there. So just reselect your images and you're good. So you're going to save your custom layout that you created here, that 13 by 9. You're going to save it as a template. Call it My Custom 5. You're going to save the My 4x4 as a custom layout as a JPEG and save that into your folder. And then you're going to have to export your collection. So you're going to export your collection that has the images, the different saved layouts, and then you will have one JPEG to put with it. So Lightroom collection, saved as a Lightroom library, exported as a library. It'll have all your prints in it, and then the one JPEG. So it takes a little bit of time to lay out. It's not as bad as it seems when you read through this. It's just click, 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 make the settings the way they have to be and save it. So it's not as bad as it looks, I promise. But that's what you want to do for next week. And then we'll do some more fun layouts next week. Make sense? Questions? Questions? None? Okay. That's the plan then. Then just have all of that set and you are good to go. Now that I completely messed this up.